You can wait outside in the hall." The words hit me like a wrench dropping on concrete. I'm standing there in my best shirt, holding a folder with 6 months of work that just saved our biggest client, and Victoria Henley from HR is telling me I can't sit at my own company's holiday dinner. I glanced around the banquet hall. Every engineer from my department had a seat at those white tablecloth tables. Even Ashley Quinn, the 27-year-old who'd been with us exactly 3 weeks. The same kid who somehow presented my automated assembly system as his digital transformation initiative at last month's board meeting. "Why would we waste a chair on you?" Victoria added, checking her tablet. "You're just a systems guy." That's when it crystallized. 22 years at this company. 22 years of keeping their production lines running, solving problems nobody else could touch, training every new engineer who walked through those doors. And now I'm just a systems guy. My name is Wallace Peterson. Most folks call me Wally. I'm 49 years old, and until that moment, I was the senior manufacturing systems engineer at Precision Dynamics Corporation. I started there as a machinist right out of high school, worked nights to get my engineering degree, and climbed every rung the honest way. I should probably mention I have what some people call a photographic memory for technical specs. Show me a manufacturing process once, and I can spot the inefficiencies, calculate the throughput improvements, and design the fixes. It served me well over the years, made me valuable, or so I thought. "I see," I said, setting my folder on the registration table. "Check your email in about 5 minutes. I walked out while typing on my phone, sending a message I'd been preparing for weeks. Behind me, I heard the notification ping start echoing through that fancy banquet hall like a symphony of panic. Let me back up and tell you how I got to that point. Because this story didn't start with revenge. It started with loyalty. Stupid, stubborn loyalty to a company that stopped deserving it years ago. I grew up in Ohio, where my dad worked the assembly line at GM until the plant closed in '91. Watched him struggle to find work at 48. Saw what happens when companies toss aside good people who know their trade. Swore I'd never let that happen to me. I'd make myself indispensable. When I joined Precision Dynamics in 2002, they manufactured automotive parts. Small operation, maybe 200 employees, family-owned business that cared about quality. The owner, Gerald Hutchinson, would walk the shop floor every morning, knew every worker by name. He believed in promoting from within, rewarding hard work with real opportunity. I was young, eager, full of ideas about how to improve their processes. They listened. They implemented my suggestions. Production efficiency went up 31% my first year just from basic workflow optimization. I redesigned their quality control protocols, cutting defect rates in half. Hutchinson called me into his office and said something I'll never forget. "Wally, you've got the mind of an engineer and the heart of a craftsman. That's rare." He put me through engineering school on the company dime. Nights and weekends for 4 years studying thermodynamics and materials science while running CNC machines during the day. My wife Linda used to joke that I courted her with calculus homework spread across the kitchen table. She wasn't wrong. Those early years were the best of my career. Every improvement I suggested got serious consideration. When I proposed upgrading our aging assembly line with programmable logic controllers, Hutchinson didn't just approve the project, he made me lead engineer. The system I designed increased throughput 40% while reducing labor costs. More importantly, it made the work safer and less repetitive for the guys on the floor. By 2010, I was senior systems engineer with a team of 3 junior engineers reporting to me. We were handling projects across the entire facility, everything from inventory management systems to robotic welding integration. I felt like I was building something meaningful, contributing to a company that valued expertise and innovation. The problem started in 2015 when Gerald Hutchinson retired and sold the company to a larger corporation. The new owners brought in professional management to optimize operations and drive strategic growth. That's corporate speak for squeeze every penny while talking about synergies. The first sign of trouble came when they hired Bryce Whitfield as operations director in 2018. Fresh MBA from Northwestern, buzzword vocabulary, zero shop floor experience. He arrived with a PowerPoint presentation about lean optimization and digital transformation like he'd invented the concepts. I'd been implementing lean manufacturing principles for 15 years, but suddenly everything needed his MBA blessing. Bryce had this way of taking complex technical problems and turning them into management consultant talking points. He'd walk through the shop with his tablet, taking notes about inefficiencies while completely missing the actual bottlenecks. When operators tried to explain why certain processes worked the way they did, he'd nod politely and make a note about change management opportunities. The first time he stole credit from me, I figured it was a misunderstanding. We'd been having quality issues with a supplier's casting tolerances. Parts would come in just barely within spec. But when thermal stress hit them during our heat treatment process, dimensional drift would push them out of tolerance. We were scrapping about 8% of parts after final machining. I spent 3 weeks analyzing the problem, running finite element simulations, working with the supplier's metallurgist to adjust their cooling protocols. The solution involved changing our incoming inspection criteria and modifying the heat treatment schedule. Implementation took 2 months of careful testing, but we got defect rates down to 0.3%. During the quarterly review, Bryce presented it as his innovative quality metrics initiative that leveraged cross-functional collaboration to optimize supplier relationships. Not a single mention of the technical analysis or engineering work that actually solved the problem. "Great work on the quality improvements," I said afterward, giving him the benefit of the doubt. He looked at me like I was a broken gauge reading the wrong value. The strategic framework was mine. You just helped with some calculations. I was stunned. The entire project, problem identification, root cause analysis, solution design, implementation management, had been mine, but I was still naive enough to think merit mattered more than politics. I let it slide, figuring the results spoke for themselves. Over the next 2 years, a pattern emerged as clear as a trend line on a control chart. I'd identify a problem, design a solution, present it to Bryce, then watch him pitch it to corporate as his breakthrough innovation. My work became departmental initiatives that somehow got credited to his strategic leadership. When I finally took it to HR, Victoria Henley gave me the corporate shuffle. She had this way of making you feel like complaining about theft was somehow unprofessional. "Do you have documentation proving exclusive ownership of these ideas?" she asked, never looking up from her screen. "I have the original CAD files, my design notes, timestamps on everything, developed during work hours using company resources." "Well, yes, but then they're company property. Mr. Whitfield is your supervisor. When he presents departmental achievements, that's appropriate chain of command. That's when I understood the real rules. Ideas flow up. Credit rarely flows down. If you're not management material, you're just a human wrench turning bolts in someone else's machine." Things might have stayed tolerable if not for what happened 8 months ago. We were hemorrhaging money on our main assembly line, constant downtime, quality issues, missed deadlines. The problem was complex, involving legacy equipment that nobody fully understood anymore. The original engineers had retired, taking their institutional knowledge with them. I'd been watching this disaster unfold for months. Parts would jam in the conveyor system, sensors would give false readings, and the whole line would shut down for hours while technicians tried to diagnose problems. Our biggest client, Morrison Automotive, was threatening to pull their contract if we couldn't meet delivery schedules. So I spent weekends in my home workshop, reverse engineering the entire system. Not just fixing symptoms, but understanding how every component interacted. I built scale models, ran computer simulations, mapped every signal path and mechanical interface. The problem wasn't any single component, it was how they all worked together, or more accurately, how they'd stopped working together after years of piecemeal modifications. The solution required redesigning the entire automation sequence, new programmable logic controllers, upgraded sensors, modified conveyor sections, and completely rewritten control software. But the real innovation was in the coordination algorithms, how the system would adapt in real time to variations in part dimensions, material properties, and operating conditions. I calculated the potential impact: 35% reduction in cycle time, 60% improvement in first-pass yield, 90% reduction in unplanned downtime. For a facility processing 50,000 parts per month, that translated to serious money. We're talking about $2.8 million in annual savings, not counting the client retention value. I spent 3 months developing the complete solution. Detailed engineering drawings, software specifications, implementation timeline, budget requirements, risk assessments, everything needed to make a go-no-go decision. I even built a working prototype in my garage to demonstrate the key concepts. The night before the quarterly strategy meeting, I was ready to present something that could transform our entire operation. I practiced my presentation until 2 a.m., making sure every technical detail was bulletproof and every financial projection was conservative. But when I arrived that morning, Bryce intercepted me at the conference room door. He was wearing his serious manager expression, the one he used when delivering bad news wrapped in corporate speak. "Leadership's got a packed agenda today, Wally," he said. "We need to streamline the technical presentations. Give me your materials. I'll incorporate the key points into my operational overview." I hesitated. This wasn't just another incremental improvement. This was a fundamental transformation that required detailed explanation. "Bryce, this system is complex. The integration challenges alone require." I appreciate the thoroughness, but executives need high-level strategic thinking, not technical deep dives. Trust me on this one. Reluctantly, I handed over my presentation folder. It contained months of work. Every calculation, every design decision, every implementation detail that made the solution viable. I sat through 3 hours of PowerPoint theater, waiting for my section. Watched presentations on marketing initiatives, cost reduction targets, and human capital optimization. When Bryce finally addressed the assembly line issues, he rushed through a 90-second summary that completely missed every critical innovation. "Our manufacturing team has identified opportunities for process improvements," he said, clicking through my technical diagrams like they were vacation photos. "We're evaluating options for equipment upgrades that could enhance throughput and quality metrics." No mention of the automation algorithms, no discussion of the integration challenges, no recognition of the engineering breakthrough that made it all possible, just generic corporate language that could have described any manufacturing improvement project. The initiative got shelved for further evaluation and strategic alignment. Translation: nobody understood what they were looking at because the person presenting it didn't understand it himself. I was devastated. Not just because months of work got dismissed, but because I knew we were missing a massive opportunity. While we delayed, our competitors were advancing. Every day we waited was another day of inefficiency, another step toward losing Morrison Automotive permanently. 3 weeks later, Ashley Quinn joined our team. Ashley was 27 years old, fresh out of Purdue with a mechanical engineering degree and an MBA from Indiana. More importantly, he was the nephew of our CEO, Preston Walsh. From day one, he was fast-tracked into meetings I'd been excluded from for months. Given access to executive leadership that took me years to earn. The kid was smart, I'll give him that. Good grasp of modern manufacturing concepts, comfortable with computer-aided design tools, spoke the language that impressed corporate leadership. But he lacked the deep experience that comes from actually building and troubleshooting complex systems. Ashley spent his first 3 weeks shadowing different department heads, learning the business and identifying optimization opportunities. He sat in on several meetings where I explained various technical challenges, including the assembly line automation project that had been shelved. I thought I was mentoring a promising young engineer, shared my analysis of the automation requirements, walked him through the technical solutions I'd developed, even showed him the prototype I'd built in my garage. He asked good questions, took detailed notes, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding the engineering principles. 3 weeks after that, Ashley presented his revolutionary automation framework to the executive team. I wasn't invited to the presentation, but I heard about it from Rachel Foster in supply chain. Ashley had created a slick PowerPoint presentation with modern graphics and buzzword-heavy descriptions. He called it Precision 4.0. Next-generation smart manufacturing, my technical solution rebranded with digital transformation marketing speak. The initiative got immediate approval. Full funding for prototype development, dedicated project team, aggressive implementation timeline. Ashley received a promotion to senior process engineer and became the golden boy of our department, featured in the company newsletter as a rising star driving innovation. When I confronted Bryce about this blatant theft, his response was brutally casual. We were standing in his office, surrounded by motivational posters about excellence and integrity. Ashley's approach incorporated strategic priorities your version lacked, he said, not even looking up from his computer. This is business, Wally. Results matter more than who thought of what first. Results, I developed every technical component of that system. The algorithms, the hardware specifications, the implementation strategy, all of it. And Ashley presented it in a way that executive leadership could understand and support. That's called value add. Value add. 22 years of experience, reduced to a management consulting term. I realized then that the company I'd served faithfully no longer existed. It had been replaced by a corporate machine that consumed expertise and excreted buzzwords. That night, I sat in my workshop at home, surrounded by 22 years of innovations. Technical drawings pinned to corkboards, prototype components scattered across workbenches, binders full of project documentation that had saved the company millions, while my salary stayed flat and my prospects dimmed. Linda found me there around midnight, staring at the automation prototype I'd built for the project Ashley had stolen. She didn't say anything at first, just brought me a cup of coffee and sat down on the old stool I'd salvaged from the shop floor years ago. "You're going to do something about this, aren't you?" she said finally. I looked at my wife of 18 years. She'd supported me through engineering school, celebrated every promotion, listened to me complain about corporate politics more times than anyone should have to endure. She knew me well enough to recognize when my analytical mind shifted from problem solving to strategic planning. Something shifted tonight, I admitted. If results matter more than people, I'm going to show them exactly what losing results costs. Linda nodded. She understood better than most what loyalty to an ungrateful employer had cost our family. Missed dinners because of production crises, weekend troubleshooting sessions, vacations postponed because the system needs you. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to build something better. Somewhere that values expertise instead of exploiting it. Over the next several weeks, I started working on a new project. One I never mentioned at work, never accessed on company computers, never developed during business hours. I enhanced my original automation system, identifying every weakness Ashley's team would encounter and incorporating solutions that would make their stolen version look like a rough prototype. But that was just the technical foundation. The real work was building a network. I began having coffee meetings with former colleagues who'd left Precision Dynamics under similar circumstances. Each conversation revealed another piece of the same ugly pattern. The company systematically exploited experienced employees while rewarding those who excelled at corporate politics over actual competence. My first call was to Jerry Hoffman, who'd left 6 months earlier after 28 years in quality control. Jerry had developed statistical process control systems that reduced defect rates across multiple product lines, only to watch his manager present the innovations as part of a Six Sigma excellence initiative. I saw the writing on the wall when they hired that efficiency consultant. Jerry told me over lunch at a diner near his new job. Bryce Whitfield, right? That guy doesn't know the difference between process capability and process control, but he's got all the buzzwords memorized. Paul Mendez had a similar story. 25 years as maintenance chief, expert in predictive maintenance systems that prevented millions in equipment failures. He resigned when the VP of Operations presented his condition monitoring strategy to corporate headquarters without attribution, claiming credit for innovative asset management protocols. "The kid they replaced me with is smart enough," Paul said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "But he's learning everything from YouTube videos and vendor manuals. Takes him 3 hours to troubleshoot problems I could solve in 20 minutes. Their maintenance costs have doubled since I left." Rachel Foster from Supply Chain had the most infuriating story. She'd spent 2 years negotiating better contracts with key suppliers, reducing material costs by 15% while improving quality standards. When she presented the final results to the executive team, her manager stood up and took credit for strategic vendor relationship optimization. The worst part, Rachel said, was watching other people nod along like they believed it. Everyone knew who actually did the work, but nobody wanted to contradict management. Each conversation built my understanding of what I was really dealing with. This wasn't just about stolen credit or missed promotions. It was about a systematic culture that consumed institutional knowledge while discarding the people who created it. Experienced employees were becoming extraction targets, valued only for what could be harvested from their expertise before they were pushed out to reduce costs. More importantly, these conversations built me a network of talented professionals who recognized the same toxic patterns. People who, like me, had continued creating and innovating despite lack of recognition, because solving problems was fundamental to who they were. 4 months before that holiday dinner confrontation, I approached Helen Rodriguez, a venture capitalist who specialized in industrial automation startups. Helen had spent 15 years as a manufacturing executive before transitioning to investment, so she understood both the technical and business sides of what I was proposing. I presented my enhanced automation system along with a comprehensive business plan. The technical improvements were significant. My new algorithms could handle variable part geometries and adapt to changing production requirements in real time. But the real differentiator was the team I was assembling. This could transform mid-size manufacturing operations, Helen said after reviewing my materials and watching a demonstration of the prototype. The adaptive control systems alone represent a major advance. But why leave a secure position to start from scratch? Because I'm not starting from scratch, I replied, showing her my second presentation, detailed profiles of 6 industry veterans who'd committed to joining my venture if it secured funding, and because my current employer will keep taking credit for innovations they didn't create until they realize those innovations have stopped coming. Helen's expression changed as she reviewed the team profiles. Now that's interesting. You're not just offering a better product, you're offering institutional knowledge that can't be replicated quickly. 2 weeks later, I had a funding commitment of $2.8 million. Helen's firm saw the potential in a company built by experienced engineers who understood manufacturing from the ground up. More importantly, they understood the market opportunity created when established companies alienated their most valuable employees. 1 month after securing funding, I'd leased workspace in an industrial park 20 minutes from Precision Dynamics. The facility came with machine shop capabilities and enough space for both development work and small-scale production. I signed the lease under a holding company name, keeping our real purpose hidden until the right moment. Legal agreements with my future team members were finalized through careful negotiation. Everyone understood the risks of leaving secure positions, but they also understood the opportunity to build something authentic. We weren't just starting a company, we were creating a workplace culture based on respect for expertise and fair recognition of contributions. I secured preliminary patents for my enhanced automation system, working with an intellectual property attorney who specialized in manufacturing technologies. The patent applications were deliberately broad, covering not just the specific algorithms I'd developed, but the underlying principles that made adaptive control possible. Through careful networking, I identified 5 major manufacturers who were considering changes in their automation suppliers. These companies had experienced quality issues or service problems with their current providers, making them open to alternatives. I arranged discreet meetings, presented our capabilities, and secured letters of intent contingent on our official launch. Morrison Automotive was particularly interested. They'd been frustrated with Precision Dynamics' recurring delivery delays and quality problems. When I showed them simulation results for our adaptive control system, their engineering manager said something I'll never forget. "This is what we thought we were getting 2 years ago. Where has this technology been?" Everything was falling into place with mechanical precision. I had funding, facilities, team commitments, intellectual property protection, and client agreements. All I needed was the right moment to execute the plan. The trigger came when I learned Ashley would be receiving the Innovation Excellence Award at the company holiday dinner, the same award that should have recognized the automation system I developed. Watching them celebrate stolen innovation while excluding the person who created it was the final calibration check I needed. I spent that last week preparing the execution sequence. Resignation letters for myself and my 6 colleagues were drafted with identical effective dates. Client notification letters explaining our departure and transition to new opportunities were prepared but not sent. A press release announcing Apex Industrial Solutions was written and scheduled for release the morning after our resignations. The evening of December 15th, I dressed with particular care. Navy slacks, white dress shirt, the burgundy tie Linda had bought me for our anniversary. I wanted to look professional for what would be my final appearance as a Precision Dynamics employee. I arrived at the Marriott Banquet Hall at 6:30 p.m. carrying my presentation folder. Not because I expected to present, I knew better by now, but because I wanted them to see me holding it one last time. A symbol of all the work they'd taken credit for, all the innovations they'd never properly valued. The registration table was staffed by volunteers from marketing, checking names against guest lists with corporate efficiency. I watched colleagues stream past, heading to assigned tables decorated with white linens and centerpieces that probably cost more than most of our workers made in a day. Victoria Henley spotted me from across the lobby. I could see her expression shift from surprise to irritation as she approached, tablet in hand like a digital clipboard of authority. "Mr. Pedersen," she said, checking her screen, "I don't show you on tonight's guest list." I glanced around the spacious hall. Every engineer from my department was seated comfortably at round tables near the front. Even the summer interns had chairs. Ashley Quinn was prominently positioned at the executive table, ready to receive his Innovation Excellence Award for stolen work. "There must be some mistake," I said calmly. I've been with the company for 22 years. Victoria's smile had all the warmth of a temperature sensor in a freezer. You can wait outside in the hall. Why would we waste a chair on you? You're just a systems guy. Just a systems guy. 22 years of keeping their production lines running, solving problems nobody else could handle, training every engineer who'd walked through those doors. And now I was expendable overhead. Not worth a dinner seat. That's when it crystallized completely. This wasn't about respect or recognition anymore. It was about showing them exactly what just a systems guy was worth. I see, I said, placing my folder on the registration table. Check your email in about 5 minutes. I walked toward the exit while typing on my phone, sending the message I'd crafted weeks earlier. Behind me, notification alerts began echoing through the banquet hall, like alarm bells in a control room. I was unlocking my truck when rapid footsteps approached. Bryce Whitfield, slightly out of breath, his corporate composure completely cracked. "Wally, wait," he gasped. "Whatever they're offering you, we'll triple it. Come back inside right now." I turned to face him. Interesting. An hour ago, I wasn't worth a dinner seat. That was a seating error, a miscommunication. Was it also a miscommunication when you removed my name from project reports? When Ashley presented my automation system as his breakthrough innovation, his face tightened. Business is complicated. Individual contributions get absorbed into larger initiatives. "Yes," I said, climbing into my truck. "I've noticed whose contributions get absorbed and whose get celebrated, but that's no longer my concern. The clients you've contacted are bound by exclusivity agreements," he called out desperately. I rolled down my window. "You might want to review those agreements more carefully. The language restricts them from working with competing solutions, but my enhanced system operates on entirely different principles. Principles your legal team reviewed 8 months ago and determined weren't worth pursuing." His face went pale as the implications hit him. "What do you want, VP title? Equity participation, name your terms." What I'd wanted was professional courtesy. Recognition for expertise. A seat at the table I'd helped build. I shifted into drive. What I learned was how to build something better. The converted warehouse I'd leased was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Jerry Hoffman was setting up workstations. Paul Mendez was configuring network equipment. And Rachel Foster was coordinating with our first client deliveries. Each of my former colleagues had submitted identical resignations, creating a knowledge exodus Precision Dynamics couldn't quickly recover from. "Did they try to stop you?" Paul asked, handing me coffee from the machine we'd installed. "Bryce chased me to the parking lot," I replied. "Offered me anything I wanted." "Too little, too late," Jerry said. "They had 22 years to recognize your value." "Not as satisfying as this," I said, opening my laptop to show them client responses that had arrived during the drive. Morrison Automotive had not only confirmed their transition to our services, but introduced us to 2 additional manufacturers impressed by our track record. At 9:15 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID showed Preston Walsh, CEO of Precision Dynamics. "Mr. Peterson, this is Preston Walsh. I believe we need to discuss this situation immediately." I put the call on speaker so my team could hear. "I'm listening." "I've reviewed the documentation you provided tonight. It raises serious questions about our management practices. Perhaps we could meet privately to resolve this matter." "There's nothing to resolve, Mr. Walsh. My decision is final." His tone hardened. "Our company has resources you cannot imagine. If you proceed with this venture, we'll be forced to protect our interests through legal channels." Rachel started recording on her phone. "Are you threatening us, Mr. Walsh?" "I'm outlining consequences, claims of trade secret violation, challenges to your patents, tortious interference with our client relationships." "Mr. Walsh," I replied calmly, "everything we've done is legal and documented. The technologies I'm commercializing were developed on my personal time using my own resources. Your legal team confirmed they were distinct from company IP when they reviewed and rejected them. As for clients, I've simply informed them I'm starting a new business. They're free to choose their service providers. Clients who are contractually obligated to us. Clients whose contracts include performance standards you've repeatedly failed to meet. I didn't convince them to leave. I offered them better service when they were already looking elsewhere." The line went quiet. "Then, what would it take to bring your entire team back?" "Full partnership track, equity participation, complete autonomy." I looked around at my colleagues, experienced professionals who'd trusted me enough to take this leap together. People who understood that some things couldn't be fixed with better titles or compensation packages. "There are no terms, Mr. Walsh. This isn't a negotiation. It's a new beginning." 3 months after our launch, Apex Industrial Solutions had secured contracts with 12 manufacturers across the Midwest. Our adaptive automation systems were reducing their operational costs by an average of 32% while improving quality metrics beyond anything they'd experienced with traditional solutions. We'd grown from 7 founding employees to 18, carefully selecting people who brought both expertise and integrity. Every hire was someone who understood that technical excellence mattered more than corporate politics, that innovation came from solving real problems rather than generating impressive PowerPoint presentations. The vindication came 8 months later when Precision Dynamics announced their strategic restructuring initiative. Industry analysts recognized it as desperation. Their stock had fallen 42% since our launch. Several major clients had terminated contracts, and they were hemorrhaging experienced personnel to competitors. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant mentioned that Bryce Whitfield was in reception, requesting an urgent meeting. When he entered my office, the transformation was striking. The confident corporate executive had been replaced by someone who looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, remaining standing until I gestured toward a chair. "What can I do for you, Bryce?" He placed a thick folder on my desk. "Formal acquisition offer. The board wants to purchase Apex Industrial and integrate your technologies into our existing operations." I glanced at the cover page, noted the substantial figure, then closed the folder without reading further. "That's a considerable offer. It reflects the value of what you've built and the cost of competing against you. 6 months ago, you told me results matter more than people." He looked down at his hands. "The company's changed since you left. New policies on innovation recognition, restructured compensation packages, cultural transformation initiatives, all improvements that could have been implemented years ago if anyone had cared enough to listen. That's exactly why I'm here. Would you consider returning as Chief Technology Officer, reporting directly to the CEO?" I studied him for a moment, recognizing the desperation behind the offer. 8 months earlier, such recognition would have meant everything to me. Now it felt hollow, like trying to repair a machine after throwing away the engineering manual. "I'll review your acquisition offer with my team and advisors, but I won't be returning as an employee under any circumstances. I've built something authentic here, with people who value each other's contributions." After Bryce left, I sat alone reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this point. The pain of being overlooked had transformed into the power of creating something genuine. Former colleagues who'd once dismissed me as just a systems guy now approached me as an industry peer. But the real victory wasn't their recognition or acquisition offers. It was building a workplace where innovation thrived because people felt valued for their expertise rather than exploited for it. 1 year after that holiday dinner where I was told to wait outside, I received an invitation to keynote the National Manufacturing Excellence Conference. Walking onto that stage in front of 1,200 industry professionals, I saw familiar faces in the audience, including several from my former employer. But they weren't looking at me with dismissal anymore. They were looking at me with something I'd earned, respect. I opened my speech with the same words that had changed my trajectory. "You can wait outside." The auditorium fell silent as I shared my journey from overlooked engineer to industry innovator. I didn't name Precision Dynamics or individual managers. The story was bigger than personal grievances. "The most valuable seat isn't the one others offer you," I concluded. "It's the one you build yourself, with people who recognize your worth." Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your expertise was taken for granted, where credit for your work somehow flowed to people who understood the politics better than the problems? If you're an experienced professional watching younger, less capable people advance while your contributions get minimized, you understand the frustration. But here's what I learned. Sometimes being excluded from their table is exactly the push you need to build something better, something where merit actually matters, where experience is valued, and where the people doing the real work get the recognition they deserve. You don't have to accept being undervalued. You have options.